everyone, welcome to today's episode. My name is Emily, and in today's podcast, we're going to talk about an important topic: how to think in English. Thinking in English is one of the key steps in improving your language skills, and it can help you speak more fluently. So let's dive in and explore some tips on how to start thinking in English. First of all, why is thinking in English so important? Well, when you translate words from your native language into English in your head, it slows you down. You have to think of the right word, translate it, and then say it. This process can make speaking in English difficult, especially if you're in a conversation. But when you start thinking directly in English, you speak more naturally, and everything becomes easier. So, how can we start thinking in English? Let me share with you a few tips. Tip number 1, surround yourself with English. This means you should aim to have as much English around you as possible. Listen to English music, watch English movies or shows, and read books or articles in English. The more you hear and see the language, the more familiar you will become with it. Over time, your brain will start connecting words and sentences in English without needing to translate. Tip number 2, start with simple thoughts. You don't need to jump into complex sentences right away. Start by thinking simple things in English. For example, when you wake up, try thinking about your plans for the day in English. Instead of thinking, I need to get dressed, try thinking, I need to wear my clothes. The goal is to make small changes in your thoughts throughout the day. Tip number 3, speak to yourself in English. You don't need someone else to practice with. Start by talking to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing. I'm cooking breakfast, I'm reading a book, or I'm walking to the store. This helps your brain start thinking in English instead of your native language. Even if you don't say everything perfectly, just try. You'll improve with time. Tip number 4, learn phrases, not just words. Instead of memorizing individual words, learn common phrases that people use in everyday conversations. For example, instead of just learning the word eat, learn the phrase, what do you want to eat? Or let's eat dinner. When you learn phrases, you get used to thinking in complete thoughts, which is closer to how we naturally speak. Tip number 5, use English in your daily activities. This one is really important. Try changing the language settings on your phone, computer, or social media accounts to English. This way, you are constantly exposed to English, even during your normal activities. Every time you unlock your phone or check your messages, you'll see English words, and slowly, it'll become more natural. Tip number 6, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's completely normal to make mistakes while speaking or thinking in English. In fact, it's part of the learning process. The key is not to worry too much about mistakes because they won't stop you from improving. The more mistakes you make, the faster you'll learn. So just keep practicing and be kind to yourself. Tip number 7, practice with others. Even if you're just beginning, try to find other English learners or native speakers to practice with. It doesn't matter if it's a formal class or a casual conversation. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll feel thinking in English. It's great practice. Now, let's talk about why these tips work. When you surround yourself with English, use it every day and start thinking in simple ways. You are training your brain. You're teaching it to stop translating and to process information in English naturally. Over time, you will find that you can think faster and more clearly in English. To sum up, thinking in English is a process that takes time. You won't wake up one day and be able to think entirely in English. But by making small changes to your routine, surrounding yourself with the language, and practicing daily, you will start to notice improvements. And remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of the journey. That's it for today's podcast. I hope these tips will help you start thinking in English and improve your language skills. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.